There will come a moment when someone you deeply care about walks out of your life, changes in ways you never imagined possible, or becomes a stranger wearing a familiar face. The pain that follows cuts deep, not simply because they departed, but because you had woven your very identity into their presence, tied your sense of worth to their approval, and anchored your peace to their consistency. When that foundation crumbles, you're left standing in the wreckage of your own expectations, wondering how someone who once brought you so much joy could leave you feeling so completely shattered. But Marcus Aurelius, the great Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, understood this universal human struggle and offered us a different path forward. He taught us that true peace, the kind that no one can steal from you, doesn't come from others remaining constant in our lives. It comes from mastering ourselves, from understanding what is truly within our control and what lies forever beyond our reach. You have power over your mind, not outside events, he reminded us time and again. This is the very heart of Stoic detachment, not a cold withdrawal from life and love, but a crystal clear understanding of where your power truly lies. Stoicism doesn't teach you to feel less deeply or to close your heart to the world. Instead, it teaches you to feel rightly, to think with clarity even in the midst of emotional storms, and to see life exactly as it is, not as you desperately wish it could be. It teaches you to stand still and centered while the world moves chaotically around you, to let go of what's not meant for you without falling apart in the process. Today, we'll uncover 10 profound Stoic rules that will help you emotionally detach from someone who has caused you pain, not to escape the capacity for love, but to escape the unnecessary suffering that comes from unhealthy attachment. These ancient teachings will free your mind from the prison of expectation. Strengthen your spirit against the storms of disappointment, and restore your sense of control over your own emotional landscape. You'll learn to detach, not to become less human, but to become more whole, more complete in yourself, and more capable of genuine love that doesn't demand possession in return. If you're finding value in these timeless teachings and want to continue your journey toward emotional freedom and inner strength, make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell. We dive deep into Stoic philosophy every week, bringing you practical wisdom that can transform how you navigate life's challenges. Your support helps us continue sharing these life-changing insights. The first rule that Marcus Aurelius would have you understand is this: rule yourself first, never others. When someone disappoints you, betrays your trust, or simply walks away without explanation, your first instinct might be to ask yourself, why did they do this to me? What did I do wrong? How could they change so completely? But Stoicism teaches us to ask a fundamentally different and far more productive question. What is actually within my control right now in this very moment? Marcus Aurelius understood that all emotional pain begins when we attempt to rule the wrong domain entirely, when we exhaust ourselves trying to control the thoughts, choices, feelings, and behaviors of other people. But the Stoic path to peace begins the moment you shift your focus inward, when you realize that ruling yourself, your own mind and responses, is your true kingdom and the only one where your authority is absolute. Marcus wrote these powerful words: "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This isn't merely good advice or philosophical theory. It's a commandment for achieving genuine inner peace. When you're emotionally attached to someone, you're often trying, either silently or openly, to control how they treat you, how they express their love, whether they choose to stay or go, and how they see your value. But this effort is exactly like trying to control the wind itself. The more energy you pour into this impossible task, the more exhausted and frustrated you become. True detachment starts with understanding that your emotions, your thoughts, your reactions, and your choices are the only things in this entire universe that truly belong to you. Instead of wasting precious energy trying to change someone's behavior, redirect that same energy toward changing your perspective, your expectations, and your response to their choices. Ask yourself this crucial question: what am I holding on to that's actually hurting me? Many times, it's not even the person themselves we're attached to. It's the elaborate story we've constructed about them in our minds. Stories about how the relationship should have unfolded, how they were supposed to treat us, how they were supposed to stay forever, or how they were supposed to recognize our worth. Stoicism invites you to burn these fictional stories in the fire of reason and logic, then walk forward with the clarity that comes from seeing reality as it actually is. When you take complete responsibility for your inner world, something truly powerful happens in your life. You stop being a slave to external events and other people's decisions. You stop waiting for apologies that may never come. You stop needing closure from someone else to move forward with your life. You begin to realize that peace doesn't arrive when others finally behave the way you want them to. It comes when you learn to behave in alignment with your own values regardless of their choices. This is where genuine emotional detachment finds its deepest roots. It's not about ignoring people, pretending you don't care, or building walls around your heart. It's about understanding that your peace is far too valuable to be placed in someone else's unreliable hands. Rule yourself. Control your thoughts. Manage your expectations. Choose your reactions. That's not weakness or giving up. That's accessing your truest source of strength. In moments of emotional pain and confusion, return to this one fundamental rule: control what's actually yours to control. Not their decisions, not their feelings, not their future choices, just your own response to whatever they decide. This is how Marcus Aurelius lived his life as emperor. This is how you can detach without bitterness consuming you. And this is how you reclaim your power by ruling your own mind first and always. The second rule requires you to accept a truth that most people spend their entire lives avoiding. All things end, without exception. Everything you hold dear today, every person you love, every relationship that brings you joy, every moment of happiness, is borrowed from time itself. And time always inevitably comes to collect what it's owed. One of the deepest and most painful roots of emotional attachment is the persistent illusion that what we love will somehow last forever, that the people who matter to us will never change, and that the connections we've built are permanent fixtures in our lives. But Marcus Aurelius reminded us repeatedly that change is not the enemy of happiness, it is simply the fundamental nature of all existence. He wrote, "Do not act as if you were going to live 10,000 years. Death hangs over you. While you live, while it is in your power, be good." Detachment becomes infinitely easier when you stop resisting the natural law of impermanence and start accepting it as part of life's design. The truth is that people change, sometimes gradually and sometimes overnight. Feelings fade, even the strongest ones. Life moves in cycles of connection and separation, joy and sorrow, presence and absence. We suffer not because something ended, but because we expected it wouldn't, because we built our peace on the assumption of permanence. The Stoic doesn't cling desperately to what's leaving. Instead, he observes, accepts, and adapts to whatever comes. When someone walks away from your life or gradually drifts out of your sphere, it's not a betrayal of destiny or a cosmic injustice. It's simply part of the natural flow of existence. Marcus understood this deeply. He viewed life like a river, always moving, always changing course. If you try to hold the water in your cupped hands, it will inevitably slip through your fingers. But if you allow it to flow naturally, it will carry you exactly where you need to go. Emotional pain deepens and becomes unbearable when you repeatedly say to yourself, "This wasn't supposed to happen. They weren't supposed to leave. We were supposed to be different." But what if it was supposed to happen exactly as it did? What if endings are not cruel punishments, but necessary transitions that allow for new growth? The Stoic doesn't argue with life's natural processes. He listens carefully to what life is teaching him. He doesn't allow himself to drown in the pain of loss. Instead, he learns what the loss came to teach him about resilience, strength, and the true nature of love. You're not here to possess people like objects in your collection. You're here to experience them fully, to grow through your connections with them, to learn what they came to teach you, and then, when the time comes, to let them go with grace and gratitude for what was shared. Even your own life is temporary, a brief flicker in the vast span of time. And if that fundamental truth is undeniable, then how much more fleeting are the people who pass through your life's journey? Detachment, when properly understood, is not coldness or indifference. It is clarity of vision. It is recognizing that you can love someone completely and still accept when their chapter in your story reaches its natural conclusion. You can cherish every memory without clinging to the illusion that what's past can somehow be reclaimed. Instead of asking yourself, how do I make them stay? How do I hold on to what's slipping away? Ask instead, how do I move forward with strength? What is this experience teaching me about love and loss? Marcus Aurelius trained his mind each day to contemplate endings, not out of morbid fascination or despair, but out of disciplined preparation for reality. This daily practice made him emotionally strong without making him numb to life's beauty. He faced each day with open eyes, and that honest vision gave him a peace that no external circumstance could steal away. Accepting that all things end doesn't make you weaker or more vulnerable. Instead, it frees you from the exhausting task of trying to make permanent what was always meant to be temporary. It allows you to stop gripping the past with white knuckles and start embracing the present moment with open hands. When you truly internalize this truth about impermanence, you'll stop emotionally breaking every time something breaks away from you. You'll begin to walk through life lighter, love with greater clarity, and live with more strength because you understand that while nothing lasts forever, your peace and inner strength can endure through every change. The third rule addresses one of the most common sources of emotional suffering. People act according to their own nature, not according to your hopes, dreams, or expectations of them. One of the primary reasons we struggle to emotionally detach from someone is because we're still desperately holding on to who we thought they were, or who we hoped they might become given enough time and love. We cling to the idealized version we created in our minds, the person we wished they could be, rather than accepting the reality of who they actually are right in front of us. But Marcus Aurelius offers us a sobering and ultimately liberating truth. People act according to their own inner nature, their own values, their own level of consciousness and emotional maturity, not according to our wishes or expectations of them. And no amount of hoping, wishing, or loving will fundamentally change another person's essential nature. He wrote these words as preparation for each day. When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, today I shall meet with interference, ingratitude, insolence, disloyalty, ill will, and selfishness, all of them due to the offender's ignorance of what is good or evil. This wasn't pessimism or cynicism speaking. It was practical preparation for reality. Marcus wasn't shocked or devastated by people's flaws, inconsistencies, and selfish choices because he expected them as part of human nature. And because he expected them realistically, he didn't become a prisoner of constant disappointment. When we emotionally attach to someone, we often create silent, unspoken contracts in our minds. We tell ourselves, if I give this much love, they should give the same in return. If I remain loyal and devoted, they should never leave me. If I show them my worth, they should recognize and value it. But here's the crucial truth. People never signed these agreements that exist only in your imagination. And when they inevitably break your unspoken rules by acting according to their own nature, rather than your expectations, it causes deep pain. not because they've necessarily done something objectively wrong, but because you assumed they wouldn't act like themselves. You have to let that assumption go completely. Detach from the idea that someone should act differently just because it would feel better for you or because you believe it's the right thing to do. The Stoic sees reality with clear, unclouded eyes. He doesn't waste energy saying, "They shouldn't have done that," or "A good person would have acted differently." Instead, he simply observes, that's who they are, and that's how they chose to act. And with that understanding comes genuine peace, not because the pain didn't happen or doesn't matter, but because you no longer resist what has already occurred. The path to emotional detachment lies in what Stoics call radical acceptance. Accept that not everyone values loyalty the same way you do. Accept that some people will consistently choose their own comfort over your connection with them. Accept that you might have completely misjudged someone's emotional depth, capacity for commitment, or level of integrity. And once you truly accept these possibilities as part of human reality, you stop being confused by their choices. You stop replaying old conversations endlessly, wondering what went wrong or what you could have done differently. You realize that nothing went wrong in the sense of a mistake or failure. Things simply went the way they were always going to go, based on who that person actually is at their core, not who you hoped they might become. This understanding isn't about becoming bitter, resentful, or judgmental toward others. It's about seeing clearly without the distortion of wishful thinking. It's about freeing yourself from the crushing weight of unrealistic expectations. When you expect someone to be fundamentally different than who they actually are, you will always suffer disappointment. But when you accept their true nature, even if it's not what you wished for, you can let them go without hatred, without confusion, and with a deep understanding of why things unfolded as they did. Marcus Aurelius knew that inner peace is built not on people doing what we wish they would do, but on us understanding why they don't and accepting that reality with wisdom. When you truly grasp this principle, you no longer beg for closure or chase after explanations that will never come. You simply say with quiet strength, "I see now who you really are." And with that clear vision, you walk away, not in anger or bitterness, but in the strength that comes from accepting reality. Emotional detachment becomes possible the moment you stop expecting figs to grow in winter and start accepting the seasons of life exactly as they come. The fourth rule reveals a truth that cuts to the heart of most attachment issues. Detachment begins with genuine self-respect, and emotional attachment is often not about love at all, but about unexamined need. We chase after people, hold on to broken relationships, and tolerate disrespect and indifference because deep down, we have forgotten our own inherent value as human beings. Marcus Aurelius understood this weakness of the human soul and repeatedly warned against letting our sense of worth depend entirely on how others treat us. He believed that a person grounded in virtue does not bend and twist themselves for approval, nor do they beg to be chosen by someone who has already shown disinterest. True detachment doesn't begin by turning away from someone else or building walls around your heart. It begins by turning inward and rediscovering your own dignity, your own worth, your own completeness as an individual human being. When you truly respect yourself at the deepest level, certain behaviors and situations become completely unacceptable to you. You stop over-explaining your worth to people who clearly don't see it. You stop tolerating one-sided affection where you give everything and receive crumbs in return. You stop trying desperately to prove to someone why they should care about you, why they should choose you, why they should stay. And most importantly, you stop handing your peace of mind over to someone who has clearly demonstrated they don't know what to do with such a precious gift. Marcus wrote these powerful words: "Never esteem anything as of advantage to you that will make you break your word or lose your self-respect." He's reminding you that nothing in this world, not even love, is worth losing your integrity, your standards, or your sense of personal dignity. Clinging desperately to someone who consistently makes you feel small, anxious, invisible, or unworthy is a clear sign that you've made them your external source of value rather than cultivating that value within yourself. But Stoic philosophy teaches clearly that true value must come from within, from your own character, your own actions, your own alignment with virtue and wisdom. You were not created to chase people who don't appreciate you. You were not put on this earth to beg for scraps of attention from those who should be grateful for your presence. You were created to grow into your full potential, to act with reason and wisdom, and to walk through life with quiet confidence in your own worth. The moment you stop trying to convince someone of your value, you begin to reclaim it for yourself. This doesn't mean you become cold, shut your heart down completely, or wall yourself off from genuine emotion and connection. It means you establish a firm boundary, a clear line that says, I know who I am, I know what I bring to relationships, and I will not allow your behavior or indifference to define my sense of self. Emotional detachment, properly understood, isn't about pretending not to care or numbing yourself to feeling. It's about caring deeply, but about the right things. Your peace of mind, your principles, your path forward, your own growth and development. Marcus Aurelius lived in a world of immense power, political betrayal, and constant demands from others. And yet, he never allowed the noise, opinions, and behaviors of others to drown out his own inner standard of what was right and true. That's what genuine Stoic detachment looks like in practice. It's not weakness or giving up on love. It's strength that has been trained and refined through unwavering self-respect. It's the kind of calm confidence that comes when you stop begging to be seen and valued and start seeing and valuing yourself exactly as you are. If someone's presence in your life requires you to shrink who you are, apologize for your existence, or constantly question your worth, then it's time to detach. Not because you hate them or wish them ill, but because you have chosen to honor yourself and your own journey. And that choice to honor yourself becomes the unshakable foundation of lasting peace and emotional freedom. Because once you truly respect yourself at the deepest level, you no longer fear who walks away from your life. You trust who you've become enough to stand alone when necessary. You know that your worth doesn't depend on someone else's recognition or approval. And in that spacious place of self-respect, emotional detachment becomes not just possible, but natural and effortless. The fifth rule teaches us about the quiet kind of strength that comes from emotional regulation. Real strength means feeling nothing excessively. There's a profound power that emerges when you're not constantly shaken by every emotional wave that crashes over you. This doesn't mean you don't feel deeply or authentically. It means you've trained your mind not to be completely ruled by whatever you happen to feel in any given moment. Marcus Aurelius believed deeply in this kind of emotional mastery. He understood that to live well and make wise decisions, one must learn to keep emotions in their proper perspective, not to suppress them completely, which leads to numbness and disconnection, but to shape them with wisdom and discipline. This understanding is where genuine detachment begins, in learning to feel fully without falling apart completely. He wrote these insightful words: "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment." In other words, it's not what actually happens to you or how someone treats you that destroys your inner peace. It's your unchecked, excessive reaction to those events. It's when your heart completely outruns your reason and you lose all perspective. Emotional attachment often transforms healthy love into destructive obsession, natural care into suffocating control, and normal hurt into complete self-destruction. You begin to feel everything far too intensely and deeply. Every small action or word from the other person carries enormous weight in your emotional universe. Every text message becomes loaded with meaning. Every silence becomes a source of anxiety. That's not emotional strength or deep love. That's slavery to feeling, and it serves no one well. The Stoic learns to detach not because they are cold, unfeeling, or afraid of emotion, but because they understand the genuine danger of emotional excess. Feeling too much about everything, expecting too much from every interaction, giving too much of yourself without wisdom or boundaries, leads inevitably to imbalance, suffering, and the loss of clear judgment. To feel rightly, in the Stoic sense, is to put emotion in its proper place in your life. It's to allow yourself to experience joy without becoming intoxicated by it, to the point where you can't function when it's absent. It's to feel pain and disappointment without collapsing completely beneath their weight. It's to love someone genuinely while still maintaining your center, your perspective, and your ability to make wise decisions. Marcus trained himself daily to observe his emotions like clouds passing through the sky of his consciousness. Not to ignore them completely or pretend they didn't exist, but to recognize that they are temporary phenomena, not permanent truths, and certainly not the sovereign rulers of his life and decisions. You can feel hurt deeply and still choose to act with grace and dignity. You can experience love intensely and still maintain your standards and boundaries. You can be disappointed and still respond with wisdom rather than reactivity. That's the delicate balance that Stoicism calls for, and it requires daily practice and conscious attention. When someone leaves your life or disappoints you profoundly, it's entirely natural to let grief, anger, or confusion flood your mind initially. But that emotional flood, if left unchecked, washes away your clarity, your ability to see the situation objectively, and your capacity to respond in ways that serve your highest good. The Stoic does not surrender clarity for anything, not even for the temporary relief of emotional indulgence. True detachment is not the complete absence of feeling. It's the presence of discipline and wisdom in the face of intense feeling. Don't numb yourself to avoid pain. That's not what Marcus taught, and it's not what leads to genuine strength. Feel whatever emotions arise naturally, but filter them through the lens of wisdom and self-respect. Ask yourself these crucial questions when emotions threaten to overwhelm you. Is this emotion helping me see the situation more clearly, or is it clouding my judgment? Is it building my character and strength, or is it breaking down my peace and resolve? If this feeling is doing neither of these positive things, then let it go. Not with resentment or force, but with calm intention and gentle redirection of your attention. Real strength lies in emotional moderation and balance. It lies in being able to care deeply about people and outcomes while still remaining centered in yourself. It's the ability to love someone fully without losing yourself in the process, to experience life's intensity without becoming a prisoner to its inevitable storms and changes. Because when you learn to feel nothing excessively, when you develop this kind of emotional equilibrium, you gain true control over everything that once controlled you. Your peace no longer depends on others' behavior. Your happiness doesn't rise and fall with every interaction. Your sense of self remains steady regardless of external circumstances. And from that calm, centered place within yourself, emotional detachment becomes a natural expression of your inner strength. Not a shield you hide behind, but a standard of emotional maturity you've chosen to embody in every area of your life. The sixth rule requires honest self-examination. Examine your attachments carefully because they reveal exactly where you are still weak. We don't become emotionally attached to people by accident or random chance. We become attached because something deep within us is reaching outward desperately, trying to fill an empty space, heal an old wound, or satisfy an unmet need that we haven't yet learned to meet within ourselves. Marcus Aurelius believed that every desire, every attachment, every emotional dependency must be examined with the unflinching honesty of a scientist studying a specimen. He didn't teach us to blindly reject all emotion or connection, but to investigate our attachments with wisdom and curiosity. At every moment of attachment, ask yourself this penetrating question: is this necessary for my peace and well-being, or is this a compulsion born of fear? That simple question, asked with genuine openness to the answer, leads us directly to the truth about ourselves. Most emotional suffering is rooted in unexamined dependence, in needs we've never consciously acknowledged or addressed. Attachment reveals precisely where we are still emotionally weak, where we rely on others to feel seen, worthy, complete, or safe in the world. And here's a crucial insight: the stronger and more desperate the attachment, the deeper the underlying insecurity or unhealed wound. You may believe you love someone, but if their absence makes you collapse into despair, if their silence sends you into anxiety, if their attention becomes like a drug you can't function without, then you're not truly loving them. You're clinging to them as a life raft in the storm of your own inner emptiness. And clinging, always, without exception, comes from fear. Fear of being alone with yourself. Fear of not being enough on your own. Fear of facing life without that external source of validation or emotional comfort. A true Stoic sees this pattern, clearly and honestly. He steps back from the intensity of the attachment and asks with genuine curiosity, why do I need this person so desperately? What emotion or fear am I trying to avoid by focusing all my energy on them? What part of me feels incomplete without their presence? When you trace your attachment back to its psychological roots, you will often discover a fear you've been running from, a wound you've been trying to heal through another person, or a need you've never learned to meet within yourself. That fear, that wound, that unmet need is your greatest teacher, not your enemy. And genuine detachment begins not by suppressing these discoveries about yourself, but by confronting them directly with reason, self-compassion, and a commitment to growth. Take time to examine honestly the stories you tell yourself about this attachment. Do you believe you can't be truly happy without this specific person in your life? Do you tell yourself that no one else will ever understand you the way they do, that they somehow complete you or make you whole? These thoughts might sound romantic or even spiritual, but they are actually chains disguised as love songs. Marcus Aurelius taught that the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. If your thoughts are consistently filled with need, dependence, and the belief that you're incomplete without someone else, then you will always feel fundamentally incomplete, no matter who stays in your life or goes. You'll simply transfer that desperate need from one person to another, never actually healing the underlying wound. True emotional strength isn't about not caring or not forming connections. It's about not depending on others for your basic sense of well-being and completeness. You can care for someone deeply, love them genuinely, and still recognize when your attachment has become unhealthy, when it's making you smaller rather than helping you grow into your full potential. The Stoic approach is to identify and release whatever weakens your mind, not because connection is bad, but because dependency is unworthy of your potential for inner strength and peace. Detachment is not something you can force or fake. It's something you naturally grow into by questioning everything you emotionally rely on external sources to provide. If your happiness completely collapses when someone else walks away from your life, then that happiness was never truly yours to begin with. It was borrowed, dependent, and therefore ultimately fragile. Marcus Aurelius would encourage you to build your joy, your peace, and your sense of worth on a much sturdier foundation. One made of reason, self-respect, personal growth, and alignment with what is true and good. So take regular time to examine your attachments without judgment, but with complete honesty. What are they showing you about areas where you still need to grow? What fears are they covering up or helping you avoid? What parts of you still believe you need external validation or saving? Because once you see these patterns clearly, you naturally stop grasping for emotional comfort from others. You no longer chase validation or try to fill internal emptiness through external relationships. You return to yourself, to your own capacity for wholeness and peace. And from that place of genuine self-sufficiency, detachment doesn't feel like loss or deprivation. It feels like the most natural thing in the world, like finally coming home to yourself. The seventh rule emphasizes that detachment is not a one-time decision, but a daily discipline. Prepare yourself mentally to let go every single day. Detachment isn't something you achieve once and then never have to think about again. It's a practice you must commit to daily, like physical exercise or meditation. Marcus Aurelius understood this completely. Each day he reminded himself that everything he held dear, his position as emperor, his family, his health, even his own life, was temporarily on loan from the universe, and what is borrowed must eventually be returned. The Stoic doesn't avoid this truth or live in denial about the temporary nature of all things. Instead, he trains his mind for the inevitable changes and losses that are woven into the very fabric of existence. Not to live in constant fear or morbid preoccupation, but to live with the freedom that comes from being mentally prepared for life's uncertainties. Marcus wrote these profound words: "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." This wasn't meant to be a morbid or depressing thought. It was a call to awareness, a daily reminder to prepare the mind to release what it naturally wants to cling to stop taking anything for granted, and to stop assuming that what brings you comfort and joy today will necessarily be there tomorrow. When you wake up each morning, you essentially carry one of two mindsets with you throughout the day: attachment or readiness. If you carry attachment, every potential loss will feel like the end of your world. Every change will throw you into confusion and despair. Every person who disappoints you will shake your foundation. But if you carry readiness, if you've mentally prepared yourself for the possibility that things might change, then you meet each moment with calm acceptance rather than desperate clinging. This daily mental rehearsal of letting go isn't about becoming pessimistic or expecting the worst. It's about sharpening your emotional strength and resilience. We don't train for loss so that we stop loving deeply or connecting authentically with others. We train so that love doesn't become destructive possession, so that care doesn't transform into suffocating control, so that connection doesn't create unhealthy dependency. Marcus Aurelius understood this delicate balance perfectly. He loved his children deeply, cared for his people as emperor, and took his duties seriously. But he never allowed that love and care to weaken his grasp on reality or make him forget the temporary nature of all earthly arrangements. He was always mentally ready to return what life had temporarily lent him, and he could do so without bitterness or resentment because he had prepared for that possibility every day. You can develop this same kind of mental preparation and emotional resilience. Each day, perhaps in the morning or evening, take a few moments to reflect quietly. If I lost this person, this opportunity, this comfort, this situation that brings me security, would I still fundamentally be myself? Would I still be able to walk forward with purpose? Would I still choose to act with virtue and wisdom? These daily reflections don't make you detached from life in a cold or indifferent way. They actually attach you more deeply to what's truly permanent and unshakable. Your character, your values, your capacity to respond to life's challenges with grace and strength. They free you from the illusions of permanence that cause so much unnecessary suffering. When we fail to prepare ourselves mentally for life's inevitable changes and losses, we essentially set ourselves up for complete devastation when those changes occur. We live in a fantasy of permanence, and when reality breaks through that fantasy, We're completely unprepared emotionally and spiritually to handle what's happening. But emotional detachment, properly understood, is the inner armor that comes from daily mental preparation. It doesn't mean you become numb to life or stop feeling deeply. It means you've made your peace with the fundamental truth that all things change, all things end, and that reality is acceptable, even when it's painful. Make this a consistent practice, not just when things are difficult or when you're already facing loss, but every single day when life feels stable and secure. Remind yourself regularly that nothing is guaranteed. Not the people you love most, not the comforts you've grown accustomed to, not the plans you've made, not even tomorrow itself. And paradoxically, when you engage in this daily practice of mental preparation, you begin to value everything more, deeply, not less. Because when you're mentally prepared to let go, when you've trained yourself to hold things lightly, you stop gripping life with desperate fear. You stop trying to control outcomes you cannot control. And in that spacious mental state, genuine peace flows naturally. Peace becomes not something you have to chase or create, but something you've systematically trained yourself to access, regardless of external circumstances. This is the daily discipline of emotional detachment, and it's one of the most powerful gifts you can give yourself. The 8th rule shows us how to redirect our mental energy constructively. Replace attachment with purpose. One of the most effective and transformative ways to detach from someone emotionally is to shift your entire focus from feeling to doing, from obsessing over the relationship to taking action on your own life, from attachment to another person, to commitment to your own growth and mission. Marcus Aurelius didn't waste time dwelling endlessly on who had hurt him, disappointed him, or walked away from his life. When faced with emotional challenges, he returned again and again to his sense of duty, to what needed to be accomplished, to the work that was his to do in the world. He wrote, "At every hour, give your full concentration. Do what you ought with a serious and unaffected dignity." In those words lies the complete Stoic path to emotional clarity and freedom. When you are emotionally attached to someone in an unhealthy way, your thoughts begin to orbit around that person like a planet around the sun. What they said, what they didn't say, what they might be feeling, what they should have done, why they acted the way they did, whether they'll change their mind, whether they'll come back. You lose hours, days, even weeks caught in an endless mental loop of wanting, needing, missing, analyzing, and hoping. But this mental loop is like a thief in the night. It steals your strength, your energy, your focus, and your ability to move forward constructively. It makes your entire life about them and their choices, rather than about what you must do to become better, wiser, stronger, and more aligned with your true purpose. Marcus understood intuitively that too much thinking about others, especially about how they've disappointed us, pulls us completely away from our own path and mission. He didn't allow feelings of hurt or abandonment to distract him from his responsibilities as a leader, a philosopher, and a man committed to virtue. He stayed rooted in the present moment by acting with clear purpose, not waiting for others to change, not wishing things were different, but taking constructive action based on what was actually within his control. True detachment doesn't require you to hate someone, erase your feelings completely, or pretend the relationship never mattered. It simply asks you to return to